It has been a wonderful journey. Like I have already said, I welcome you all and swagatam to this last panel of the day. It's called Mind Body Connect, and we are very fortunate that His Excellency Dr. KJ Srinivasa, Ambassador of India to Guyana, is with us. And we will start this session with a small video from Guyana. After that, I will give an introduction of the ambassador. And after his address, Charu Sharma can take over. Koti, can you please play the video, please?
Welcome to the land of many faces, not one, not two, 6 different races. You know I'm sorry, but she's getting you right in the heart.
That was a small video sent to us from the ICCR Center of Guyana. We were wondering what to call this session, which is all to do with sports. And we thought the best name would be the Mind Body Connect, because after all, to be a sportsman, you need extreme focus mentally also. So that's the reason why we called it Mind Body Connect. In fact, our chair for this session asked us, why is it they're filling their pellets before, they come to sports? We said, well, right now it's all virtual world. So, let them be satisfied and sit back and, let you all do the talking. Like, we all sit back and watch the sportsmen on TV. So that's the reason why, the food session came before yours. So I'd like to welcome His Excellency Sri KJ Srinivasa, High Commissioner of India to Guyana. Dr. Srinivasa is in Guyana. He was in Antigua, and he's also in charge of Antigua and Barbados, Saint Kitts and Nevis, Consul General of India to Anguilla, and Ambassador of India to CARICOM Secretariat, High Commissioner of India, Georgetown, Guyana. Sir has been very kind and has been very cooperative also. Sir, we welcome you, and we'd like you to say a few words before we start the session now.
Thank you, Vijayalakshmi. Thank you for inviting me today. It's been a great pleasure to associate with the Soft Power Center so far. And without much ado, do you want me to start my presentation now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Namaskar. A very good day to all distinguished co-speakers, dear friends who have joined us from across the globe, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I must congratulate the Soft Power Center to having taken this wonderful initiative for promoting India's huge soft power potential under the Global Utsava on Indian soft power. Today's session, titled Mind Body Connect, is very interesting. Having been myself an amateur cricketer, both in school and my medical college days, and a self-professed sports lover, the topic I am going to speak today straddles my passion for sports and my current job as a diplomat representing my great country. Today, I'll be speaking on sports diplomacy. Sports diplomacy is normally defined as the use of sport as a means to influence diplomatic, social, and political relations. Sports diplomacy may transcend cultural differences and bring people together. It forms a part of the so-called soft power, a term which itself was introduced by Joseph Nye in late 1980s as the ability to attract and co-opt rather than coerce while shaping the preferences of others through appeal and attraction. Sports diplomacy has emerged as an integral part of efforts to build the ever-strengthening relations between many countries. It uses the universal passion for sports as a way to transcend linguistic and socio-cultural differences and bring people together. Participation in sports teaches leadership, teamwork, and communication skills that help the young people succeed in all areas of their lives. The use of sports and politics has had both negative and positive implications throughout history. Sports competitions or activities have had the intention to bring about change in certain cases. Nationalistic fervor is sometimes linked to victories or losses to some sport on sports fields. According to a much utilized classification in diplomacy, sports diplomacy falls under what we call as the public diplomacy initiatives, which is used frequently to improve intermediate and long-term relations between states by influencing the public abroad to accomplish certain foreign policy goals. The concept of sports diplomacy is very simple. Sports, as we all know, is a universal phenomenon which transcends linguistic, national, and cultural boundaries. As such, it can facilitate communication across cultures. At its best, sports diplomacy harnesses this aspect of sport for a variety of diplomatic ends. Some of them could be women's empowerment, intercultural understanding, non-violence education, and more. So why does sport diplomacy matter? The NBA-China controversy, which many of you would have read about, which happened in October 2019, over a pro-Hong Kong tweet by the general manager of the Houston Rockets basketball team, has made the answer to the question painfully clear. As the NBA found out, sport and international relations cannot ignore one another. For better or worse, the world of sport has collided with the real world. Often, this occurs through sports diplomacy. Although sports diplomacy has gained traction in recent years, it remains a little-known area of public diplomacy. This is a shame. The universality and versatility of sports makes sports diplomacy a potentially important tool as free nations strive to build a peaceful and just global community. At the same time, ignoring sport can be dangerous. It can easily become a vehicle for extremist ideologies and government propaganda. Professionals who are involved in international policy, from politicians to researchers to diplomats, should pay adequate attention to sports diplomacy, both in order to advance security, peace, and human rights, and to guard against its misuse. Today, the most salient example of sports diplomacy is the Olympic Games. Inspired by its ancient namesake, the modern Olympic movement seeks to promote peace, human dignity, and intercultural understanding. To some extent, it has been successful. The Games have inspired generations of athletes and spectators with the Olympic values, and at times these values have bled into international relations. For example, the 2018 Pyeongchang Olympics provided a great opportunity to diffuse tensions between North and South Korea. Athletes from each state actually marched together in the opening ceremony, and a unified Korean team competed in the women's hockey. Although these gestures were largely symbolic, they were nonetheless an important step forward in the fraught relationship between the two countries. Nor is it a coincidence that this took place in the context of the Olympics. Sport, with all its triumph, disappointment, pain, and exhilaration, briefly allowed the Koreans to appreciate the shared experiences that make human beings more similar than different. It's hard to imagine the two Koreas uniting in this way for anything other than a sporting event. While the Olympics is often the biggest political example of using sports for diplomatic means, cricket and association football, as well as other sports in the global arena, have also been used in this regard. In the case of apartheid, sport was used to isolate South Africa and bring about a major overhaul in the country's social structure. While ethnicity and race can cause division, sports can also help blend differences. I remember distinctly the first cricket match played between India and South Africa in the fully packed, iconic Kolkata's Eden Garden Stadium in the 91-92 season. The tour was significant in that it was South Africa's first official international cricket series since their suspension from the sport in 1970 due to the apartheid policy. And sports was again used as a means in 1991 to welcome back a country from political distancing. India, which had played a leading role across multilateral forums to keep South Africa out for its apartheid, was again the leader in welcoming back the same country after apartheid was lifted, thus registering a famous win for sport diplomacy. The same two countries were actually involved in a lesser remembered earlier episode in 1974, when due to their opposition to the apartheid policies of the South African government, India had refused to travel to South Africa for the Davis Cup tennis final, therefore defaulting the final and awarding South Africa the tournament. Maybe we lost the best opportunity to win the Davis Cup, but we certainly won the diplomatic battle and millions of hearts that day. The cost of hosting contemporary sporting mega events is typically in excess of at least 15 billion US dollars. And the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar is expected to exceed about $200 billion. Consequently, sports diplomacy awakens interest as a tool of statecraft associated with tremendous marketing potential. It is seen across the globe that sports as a full-fledged industry can and may contribute about 1 to 5% of the country's GDP. In the developed countries, sports contributes about 2 to 4% of total employment. Governments perceive sporting mega events as an opportunity for positioning their country and cities in the global consciousness. The questions of soft power, public diplomacy, and national image mingle naturally with questions of place branding, tourism, and destination development. Many famous practitioners of diplomacy have advocated sports diplomacy and contend that it is very important to seek to better understand the soft power potential of sports insofar as this can provide opportunities and benefits to countries who choose to play the game. Sports, indeed, have a tremendous potential to create meaning, and that meaning can be harnessed by governments seeking to make most of their resources. Sports create superstars who are capable of transcending national, cultural, and racial boundaries. While the Olympics provide an important venue for sports diplomacy, it's not the only one. It can thrive where people of various nations come together to play, train, or compete. In recent years, several sports diplomacy programs have sprung up in many countries, but the leader remains the United States. The United States Department of State, for example, has a full-fledged sports diplomacy division, which uses sports-based exchanges and sends sport envoys, the top US athletes who conduct workshops abroad to promote democracy, women's rights, and other diplomatic aims. The sports diplomacy, indeed, has developed into a vibrant field of inquiry relevant to both practitioners and scholars in the field. Sitting at the intersection of many fields, it raises the fundamental questions of politics, diplomacy, and statecraft. Diplomacy is, for example, central to the questions of recognition and governance that enable representatives of countries to come together to compete. Organizations such as the International Olympic Committee and the FIFA predate the United Nations and are subject to political maneuverings every bit as complex as major international organizations. Unfortunately, sports diplomacy also has had a dark side. It can convey messages of hate and violence as easily as those of fellowship and peace. The most infamous example of this is the 1936 Berlin Olympics, when Nazi Germany used as a global platform for its ideology. Palestinian extremists used the 1972 Munich Olympics to promote their cause by torturing and killing 11 Israeli team members. Sports has also been used as a means of bolstering totalitarian or dictatorial regimes. Successful athletes and sporting events lend both domestic and international legitimacy to these regimes, and athletic competitions have often become proxy battlefields. Sports diplomacy has a tremendous potential to sway minds and hearts for good or ill. I believe that international policy professionals need to start treating it as a serious area of public diplomacy, not as an afterthought or a curiosity. Governments should extend support and also use the existing sports diplomacy initiatives and start new ones. In an era when hard power is king and diplomacy falls by the wayside, sports diplomacy can help states to refocus their energy on soft power initiatives. Perhaps most importantly, athletes, coaches, and league officials need to be aware of the way their sports can be manipulated for diplomatic gain. Numerous athletes have sought political office, some of them unsuccessfully, on either the national level or the subnational current. Keeping sport politically neutral is in many ways a noble endeavor. Athletic excellence, not politics, is at the heart of true sportsmanship. However, the reality is that complete neutrality is almost impossible. To withdraw in the face of opposition can be the equivalent of endorsement. Athletes and diplomats, managers and politicians alike can all learn a lesson from the earlier mentioned NBA incident. Ignore sports diplomacy at your own peril. Sports inevitably carry powerful message about international relations. The real question is, what message do you really want to send? I have observed that sport diplomacy exchanges increase dialogue and cultural understanding between people around the world. The use of sports as a platform exposes international exchange participants to the culture of the host countries, while providing them with an opportunity to establish links with, for example, if they do it in India, the Indian sports professionals and peers. In turn, Indians can learn about other cultures and the challenges young people from other countries face today. India has been the land of many globally renowned inventions such as yoga, Ayurveda, zero, etc. But the country's inventions are not just limited to arts, crafts, cuisine, science, and culture, but sports too. Sports has been an integral part of the Indian ethos since millennia. Many would be surprised to know that many of the modern games flourishing in other countries had their beginnings in India. Chess, polo, Kabbadi, Kho-Kho, Carom, Ludo, modern badminton, dice, some martial art forms, etc. had their origins in India. These sports have now transcended Indian boundaries and are played across the globe, which itself is a form of sports diplomacy. Indian sports stars are recognized across the world and are a global brand themselves. A Tendulkar, a Dhoni, a Kohli stand tall, even though it may sound that one sport has dominated the headlines and the financials in India. However, we do see that a lack of sporting culture has held back the growth of a similar industry in India in the past, despite the growing awareness and interest in various different sports besides cricket. The possible outreach and the true potential of using sports to overcome issues is not being used to the fullest in India. Sports in India have a tremendous potential for expansion in the existing huge market, possibly outgrowing its borders with ease. The recent successes of the IPL, the Hockey India League, the Indian Super League, and of course the Pro-Kabaddi League, etc., have indeed projected India across the world, and the brands create a great opportunity where India's sports diplomacy has taken some roots. I believe that India, with its immense soft power potential in culture, art, history, etc., could also make use of its sports potential in the future. We sincerely hope that the new generation of sports stars, entrepreneurs, corporates, and the government of India work together in this endeavor and utilize the true potential of Indian sports for promoting sports tourism and sports medicine, given our prowess in healthcare and pharma industries. On that positive note, I will conclude my address today. I sincerely hope that we are all healthy, safe in the midst of this pandemic. The world is facing some tough times, but as they always say, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I believe it will come. I wish you all well. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, Dr. Srinivasa, sir, and for this wonderful opening and also for your continuous support to the Center for Soft Power. It's wonderful to come to this section on sports, much looked forward to by all of us. You mentioned the Olympics, sir, and that was where I got a first sense of the possibilities of a nation being embodied by individuals and representing our country abroad. This was in the 1980s when my father was posted in the embassy at Moscow, and it was the Olympics. And PT Usha at the age of 16 became the first woman athlete from India to make it to the finals of an to an Olympic final. And the pride that all of us felt was immeasurable, actually. And so from there, we've come a long way. And thankfully, IPL has not yet started. Otherwise, we wouldn't have anybody watching us today. But without much ado, I'll go on to introducing the panelists. We have as our chair, Charu Sharma. He is a recognizable face. I don't think there's anyone who needs an introduction to him. He's a commentator, he's a former sportsman, and he started his sports casting career in 1982 at the 9th Asian Games for the National Network of India. And he has founded and conducted India's biggest and most successful sporting revolution, the Pro-Kabaddi League. Charu, I hope you will share your experience with us. And we have Shri Kapoor. He is the co-founder of Northern Motorsport, co-founder Extreme Sports Foundation, COO at Performance Vehicles Organization Limited. He has been involved in building performing cars since 1990. We have Ms. Gosia Reds. She is a race car driver. She has also participated in motorsports in India and is currently the project coordinator for FIA Women in Motorsport. We have Ajey Patil. He's a marine engineer, naturalist, and with 15 years of diving and teaching experience in Thailand, Lakshadweep, and Andaman Islands. He also happens to be a childhood friend. And anyone wanting to visit Goa and experience our deep waters can connect with him. We have RB Ramesh. He's an Indian chess grandmaster from Chennai who won the 202 British Championship and 2007 Commonwealth Championship. He started Chess Gurukul, Chess Academy in Chennai to train young aspirants for championships. We have Aparna Popat, again, a very, very popular sports person. She won India's national champion for a record equaling 9 times when she won the all senior national championship between 1997 and 206. She has always played with dignity and shown class and admirable sportsmanship. She was also part of a contingent which was invited by the American government as part of a sports diplomacy initiative. We have Mr. Sanjeeva Singh. He is an Indian archery coach from Jharkhand and is the chief at Tata Football Academy and Sports at Tata Steel. He's a recipient of the Arjuna Award and Dronacharya Award from the Government of India. I will now let Charu take over the proceedings. Sit back and enjoy because Charu has promised a very exciting and fun-filled evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aparna. Everybody put on your racing shoes. But Aparna, thank you. Vijay Lakshmi, Vijay Kumar, thank you very much. And of course, a very, very special thank you to Your Excellency, Dr. Srinivasa. You know, you couldn't have put things better. And all I can say is because of all that you said, I have nothing left to say because you said it all and quite brilliantly. Are you actually sitting in Guyana right now?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. It must be raining, of course. Because, I mean, the amount of matches that have been spoiled in Guyana because of rain, cricket matches that is not even funny. I think that and one other ground has a record for the highest number of rained off matches. But the West Indies, of course, is a beautiful place. And I envy you right now. I wish I could have been there with you. But I will use the West Indies in some of the things that we have to say today. But maybe we'll see you there unless you get moved off somewhere else. But truly, you know, you said everything that this session is all about. The power of sport and diplomacy. And of course, taking cultures across this lovely globe of ours. But I want to welcome everybody here. And if it's okay with you, Aparna, just a few rules. I think I mentioned them earlier. If everybody can speak for about a minute or two, whenever there's reference. And is it possible to have everybody unmuted? Because unless there's a lot of ambient sound behind you, just unmute yourself because, you know, otherwise it just takes time. And Aparna, where's, how do I pronounce the name? Gosia, Zest.
I'll just reach out to her, Charu. I think she's
Please
not
do.
coming
Please
yet.
do, please do.
Yeah.
And Ajey has also decided to become invisible for the moment. But listen, I have 1,000 examples. And of course, Dr. Srinivasa, you've said many things, but I will just say one or two things right at the top for establishing even more closely the power of sport. And I mean absolutely no disrespect to people who are non-sports persons, as it were. Of course, you, Your Excellency, are a cricketer. But when I, you know, do many of these sporting sessions, whether it's to youngsters or others or whatever, I keep saying, you know, please promote sport. Please push sport. Please understand the power of sport. And I'll give you one small example. And it's I mean, it's in lighter vein. It's in jest. I say that first because, you know, sometimes people have thin skins and say, oh my God, what's he saying? And I say, you know, there's this wonderful country in the West Indies. Strangely enough, Dr. Srinivasa, you know, this is my West Indies example. And I said, surely, you know, the most powerful man, well, the second most powerful man in Jamaica is the finance minister. He runs the country. I mean, he holds the purse strings. I mean, he's such an important guy. Anybody here? Quiz question. Can you name the finance minister of Jamaica? And everybody's like, you know. And I say, never mind. There's this guy who hangs around, takes it easy, you know, runs a few races here, then the other, is the fastest man in the world. Oh, hey, Usain Bolt, Usain Bolt. So just a small case in point that one man, of course, he is the fastest man in the world, can bring a whole country alive. Everybody knows Jamaica and Usain Bolt and the connection because of sport. It may sound like a silly example, but in many ways, it's a typical example of how important sports persons can be when they achieve for their country and, of course, for themselves as well. I mean, a couple of other quick examples, the IPL, what has it done? Yes, I mean, people can pillory it in many ways saying, oh, it's a, you know, it brings along a lot of materialism in the game and so on and so forth. I mean, there's no shortage of criticism. But what it has done is in cricket, which never had this collection of individuals from various cricket playing nations at one place for a long period of time. And there was this acrimony almost always. India goes to Australia, there's a lot of acrimony. They come here, there's a lot of cribbing and, you know, so on and so forth. But many cricketers from many countries came together on one platform. And without question, each one of them openly admits the fact that we are all a lot closer as an international band of cricketers now. It's not that we were not adult enough to understand our differences, but just spending time together and understanding each other's cultures and ways. I'm not saying it's robbed cricket of its competitive nature, it's still very competitive, but the cricketers are just closer, at least those who have the opportunity of playing together, and so on and so forth, million such examples. But today, for a change, I'm not going to speak, and I'll be very happy if others do. And Ramesh, Ajey, and Raj, whom I can't see, there's a wonderful photograph of yours, but I can't quite see you otherwise. Oh, there you are. Thank you very much. Well, this is the real you then, is it? Okay. And just one thing, Dr. Srinivasa, the light has gone out from in front of you. We'd love to see more of you. So maybe a light in front of you needs to be there again. There we go. No, No, not yet. But anyway. So, and Sanjeev, I hope you guys don't mind if we start with ladies. Of course, Gausia hasn't joined us yet. I think Aparna, is she there? No, not yet?
No, it's not yet.
That's all right. Maybe she's in Poland or wherever it is, and things are tough. So Aparna, you are our only lady guest for the moment. And of course, I've got my manners right. Ladies first, always. Aparna, you know what this session's all about. You have represented India in many countries over many years, and I'd love to have your thoughts and perhaps a couple of experiences that you can share. Remember the 2 minutes, by the way. And of course, you have a very special diplomacy incident as well. So what does sports as a soft power mean to you, and have you experienced it firsthand?
I think certainly. I think, and the three things really that had me experience sports diplomacy. One, of course, being the Olympics, because having represented India on 2 occasions at the Olympics, you realize that it's more than just the sport, and it's all about being with the rest of the world pretty much, and having those exchanges. And a lot of it is competitive, but then a lot of it is not also. So that's one. The second is because I come from badminton, just to see the way the sport of badminton has really grown into the world. And today India has really very solidly put their foot on the world map when it comes to this sport that incidentally originated in Pune in India. And the third, as you said, yes, a sports diplomacy experience when I went to the US. For the Global Sports Mentoring Program, which was initiated by the US Department of State and Hillary Clinton. And that's when I really realized the power and how well they did the course and the impact that it had on me as a person and on what I do and what I carry since 2012.
Well, fantastic. Thank you for sticking out to these time rules as well. You have actually a minute more. But just taking off from that, Mrs. Vijay Kumar, may I request you to please understand what Aparna has said, and maybe you can take it offline later, because people such as you and others need to make the Indian government understand, Dr. Srinivasa, you too, I suppose, can put in a word, about having such meets at a sort of a national level by inviting international candidates. Because if we are to treat sport as a serious soft power, we need to do it at a central level. And this session here is wonderful, but it's not going out to the rest of the world in as strong a fashion as if it's originated by the Indian government. So Aparna, maybe you can share your experience in detail with Mrs. Vijay Kumar, and we can try and make a bigger meal of it, because if we invite the rest of the world to see what India has to offer in a more organized fashion, then I'm sure it'll serve a much better purpose. Now, one of the big stories, of course, is the Pro-Kabaddi League, or Kabaddi in general. And I think you mentioned, Aparna, that maybe I can share an experience or two. I will not, because if I do, it might take about 6 hours or 6 days. So I'm going to try and come in the middle every once in a while when I can. But I will say this, that Kabaddi is like other sports, badminton you mentioned, of course, Sanjeev will mention archery, and Ramesh will mention chess. Well, not so maybe motorsports, Raj, but, and not so scuba. Where's Ajey? Has disappeared again. But Kabaddi is our unique, true blue, ancient heritage sport. And if India didn't make the effort to push that sport within our own country and internationally, then who would? So the Pro-Kabaddi League, I'll say this only, has brought Kabaddi back to international consciousness, one, but even more important as step one, just brought the respect of our own sport in our own country back on the pedestal it deserves. So if it did nothing else, it did that. And I'm truly very, very glad that it did. And of course, the fact that it did very well is secondary. I mean, if it hadn't still, the opportunity would have been there. All right, so more on Pro-Kabaddi every once in a while. Aparna, do remember that in case there's any comment or anything that you want to bring in from somebody else who's watching, please do it as quickly as you can.
Sure.
Sanjeev, archery, we're also proud of the fact that, I mean, India has done very well internationally. There was this whole special area games thing in the early 80s when we went around to all the other areas in India where we thought that the indigenous people from that area were very good at archery for various reasons, forest hunting and so on and so forth. But competitively too, we've done very well. And is the world now looking at India as a potential archery power? I know you're still very closely involved as a Dronacharya awardee, apart from being, of course, a terrific archer yourself and the Arjuna Award as well. You need to unmute yourself.
But I think though, when you come to sports diplomacy, I totally agree with what Aparna said, you know. And I remember Aparna being together with me in the Olympics. So that was one thing I totally agree that Olympics, while many of us go to win, but there are many people just by the sheer presence of being in the Olympics, rubbing shoulders with the top of the stars of the entire world itself, you know, brings countries together. You know, that's very important. See, playing is important, winning is important, but getting people together, coming people together, and that's what Olympics and that's what all other international sports make of. Incident in 2004 when I took the Indian team, and that was at New York. You know, we were playing the final. That was the first time that India ever became. We qualified for both the men and the women in the first World Championship. India stood. We just lost the medal by a whisker, by 1 point in fact. And this was for the first time we were playing off the field. So what was happening was when we were looking at tournaments. So in order to create mass awareness among the people, what they did was the finals were played in a park. That was the first time this new format, as we said about the IPL, this is the new format which with the archery, the world archery started, that can they have the final of an event at a place which is a Asian movement, an Asian monument, you know, next to the park, you know, in the between the bridges. So like that, they were creating those scenes on the desert, on the near to the seashore. So the finals are being held at a public place to create more awareness, you know, create more awareness, create people more gathering there, watching it. And that day when we were stood forth, the New York Tribune, it came out, the dark horse India emerges. And you are right. That was the day that India made its presence felt. Next year we became the junior world champion. We started the compound archery there. So recurve, which we started with the Tata Academy, and that is where we talk about diplomacy, because then what happened was after we started winning at the international level, the Southeast Asian countries started coming to Jamshedpur for training. So in the academy, we got people from Sri Lanka coming in, people from Myanmar coming in, we got people from Bangladesh coming in, and for the first time, let me tell you, we introduced the Asian Indian archery to the, just like you introduced Kabbadi to the world, we started introducing Indian archery to the SAF country. I said, this is one sport in which India was there. Can I take this tribal sport out of India and can I take it to the, at least the Southeast Asian countries? So that, which anybody can start, because it was just a 4,000, 5,000 rupees. You can buy an Indian round kit and you can start. So that is all about sports diplomacy. Are you interconnecting with the countries in and around you? You know, you become a power. There are people looking forward to you, and that builds bridges. When I go to Colombo for my projects, for Tata housing projects, what I find is that basically they welcome me not more because I'm a Tata housing vice president, but more so because I'm an expert in archery, and they open up the door. Why don't you come and, you know, coach my people, give a talk to the sports people, the ministry comes forward. That's the power of sports. That is all of soft power is about. How do we ensure that sports can build bridges? As Mr. Srinivasa was saying, it really builds bridges. And I'll take you an example of compound archery. In 2004, when we started the compound archery in the world, and I saw it in New York, I picked up the bow, and then I realized my Indians are very short in height, you know. And I was wondering that the people who passed out of my academy, they could not pursue it, they could not come into the Indian team, but they actually had what to do with them. I used to feel very bad. What do I do with the people who don't make the top class? Because not everybody in the academy will become the Indian stars. When I saw this compound archery in the world taking place in New York, then I said, why, this is a beautiful game for my people who are leaving archery. People who are short in height, the tribal boys and girls. And that is what sports diplomacy is all about. Are you interconnecting something, some sport which was outside the country? Can you bring it, a new sport, into India? And I started in 2004. And today I'm so proud to say that today we are a World Cup winner. Nobody thought that India in 6 years' time will become a superpower in compound archery. Today we have a World Cup gold medalists. Continuously we are winning. We are the top 3 in the world. My women's team was ranked #1 in the world. So just imagine. So that is what is there. It's not only that your sport going out, but other sports coming in. And that's what bridges the countries together. And today people look forward to us and not only in the recurve archery category, but also in the compound. And therefore, we have started. In fact, just the other day, I was speaking to the ambassador of Maldives, and I suggested, I am ready to train the Maldives team, because they can go to, there's a sports Olympic quota, you know, for those countries which are not participating in the Olympics. So I said, you take this Olympic quota for archery, we will train your team at Tata Academy and take your team to the Olympics. Now that is what is sports diplomacy. Can we bring nations together? Can we bring people together? Can we share boundaries? And that's what it's all about. Thank you.
Sanjeev, well said, right on target. However, for today's purposes, you might have mentioned Guyana. Why the High Commissioner to Maldives? You know, we've got the High Commissioner.
The next target will be Mr. Srinivasa. Then can I get people from Guyana to come and stay?
That's what you need to do. And of course, I'm sure Dr. Srinivasa will invite you soon enough to be able to take your expertise there. But who next? Raj, if I can get to you. Now, you know, we've talked about two sports that are extremely, well, one's extremely popular in India. Badminton gets a lot of media coverage as well. And Sanjeev, you know, I must apologize because archery, you know, India is doing so well. We have World Cup winners. We have so much talent as well. Yet it hasn't quite received its media due yet, its popularity dues yet, which is a shame. We'll get to it later. But Raj, you know, motorsports, I mean, I know that you've done yeoman service, you've done a lot of work. However, how do we ensure that motorsports become something that India is an international home for? I mean, yes, there was a Himalayan rally. There are lots of other rallies as well. You've got, you know, the Destination Desert Storm. And the Formula One threatened to be in India for a long time, but then, of course, that crashed sadly. I don't know. Let's have your thoughts and your experiences about how this globally popular sport, and of course, pastime as well, is something where India doesn't seem to have crossed a certain threshold, according to me, but you could offer a different perspective.
No, you're absolutely right. We have great terrain. We have good athletes. We have good hardware. But you're right. We just haven't made the mark as yet in terms of mainstreaming the sport. I would say that it needs somebody like you to galvanize and just bring all these pieces together and, you know, just make this gel, because fortunately or unfortunately, most of the organizers or clubs, because this is not really a professional, a commercial professional way of running the sport, the way we do it. Everybody who organizes events in this country are basically enthusiasts who have graduated to make companies which are non-profit companies, and they all work under a federation. So we all try and, you know, rig up all little components and make an event happen. But it's not done the way a promoter, a professional promoter would do it. And you need to look at it 360 degrees. You need to put all the ingredients in. And we get carried away doing it technically correct and, you know, making sure there's a lot of challenge. But somehow we don't get all the ingredients right.
Yeah, you know, there's no cohesive, comprehensive effort. I've seen, you know, it's not a major sport as yet in India. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but, you know, small as it is, it still has too many factions. It's too fractious. And I keep saying, come on, guys, there are only 30 cars racing. Can't you get your act together and race together rather than everybody pulling in different directions? But we'll get there later. I just have one very quick story to share from the world of, well, rallying, actually. You know, the Himalayan rally was very robust in the 80s, and unfortunately, it kind of fizzled away because of various reasons. And, you know, we don't need to share that here now. But I was working with the company then, and we were sponsoring the Himalayan rally, and of course, also sponsoring one of the rally drivers who was actually #2 in the world at that point in time, guy, Belgian called Guy Colsoul. And I learned a valuable lesson from him then, because a lot of sports persons take assistance for granted. It's difficult enough getting assistance, but when you get it, they take it for granted. And they're not counseled or coached enough in returning the generosity of those who've given. Here's Guy Colsoul, and, you know, before the rally, about an hour or so before, I was trying to get some media organized, and I said, Guy, you know, we've got a little interview lined up for you, and are you okay? I'm sorry, I don't want to disturb you. He said, yeah, okay, no problem. So he sort of moved in front of the car, and he was driving some Ford RS200 or whatever it was. This is 1982. And I said, okay, good, everybody ready? So here we go, ready? And he said, stop. And I said, oh gosh, now what? And he said, you know, give me another cap and give me an overall with your sponsor's name, with your company's name. Otherwise, I'm not doing this. Would you believe it? You know, and what we were giving him was like, I mean, nothing. And still he said, no, you guys are sponsoring me. I need your stuff right here, right now. Otherwise, I'm not doing this interview. Brilliant. And of course, he got him a cap, and I was very grateful that he thought of all of that. And it was just under sports persons. And from that time onwards, I've always lamented the fact that sports persons are sometimes reluctant to give back to those who've given to them, which is just, you know, very unschooled.
I don't think it's intentional. It's just that you know, they're not tutored, or you know, they're not aware of what is expected.
Two. One, of course, they are not counseled enough. I agree. Two, there's also reluctance. I've noticed that, especially amongst those who are better off. You know, they're like kind of very reluctant to give back to those who are giving to the game. But let's not get negative. Okay, Ramesh, you are the ultimate grandmaster Gurukul man. And like many other sports, of course, chess is very Indian, and we're all very proud of what chess has done for the last 30, 40 years. But do you have a story or two for us about how it has led to a lot of people respecting what India has to offer?
Yeah, hello everyone. Good evening to everyone. So I remember when I was young and playing chess, I had this incident where I was traveling to Germany by train, where I was traveling within Germany by train, and the train was almost empty. And the passenger next to me was a local person, and he was asking me like, where are you from? When I said, I'm from India, he asked me like, why are you here? And I said, I'm here to play in a chess competition. And this was in mid-90s. And he couldn't believe, because he said, I don't believe that. You are here to, as an immigrant, you are here for a better life. Because in India, you have only elephants and snakes on the streets. And I don't believe there are intelligent people there who travel to play sport like chess. So I understand, like this was the perception the West has or had about Indians in general, but probably like a couple of decades ago. And from there, we have come a long way. And these days, if a chess player is seen in Europe, the Europeans, they are really scared of us, even in US. We are among the most respected nations. As a chess playing nation, we are very much respected and feared. So I think there has been a drastic change in how the game has evolved over the decades, thanks largely to efforts of Vishwanathan Anand, who has single-handedly made the game more popular. And I remember in olden days, probably like a couple of decades ago, there were no trainers in India, no professional trainers, and anyone who wants to learn the game has to pay a substantial fee to foreign trainers. And it was not affordable at all. And training was, all the training methods, the philosophies of learning, improvement, everything we had to import. We didn't, even though the game originated in India, we did not have much to contribute from our own side. But from there, we have evolved a lot. And not just because of better access to technology, to information, and better access to international competitions, but also I believe the Indian work ethics is unique. We don't mind struggling to come up in life, and this is also visible in non-sporting arenas as well. Like Indians are respected for their work ethics in other fields as well. And from a situation where we had to import coaches, now we have reached a point where the West is looking at improving their chess strength by trying to follow the Indian method of learning chess. So I think it is very important in every sport that we find our own path for progress. We don't have to ape West in whatever they do in trying to excel, but we should in our own ways of getting better. And I think in chess, we have done it quite well. For example, in our academy, Chess Gurukul, we teach to over 400 students outside India online. So there is so much curiosity about Indian way of learning.
Ramesh, thanks very much. I have so many other
sure.
follow-up questions on chess and everything else, but we've got to give everybody equal time. So that leaves my good friend, Mr. Patil. Listen, I don't have a huge bucket list, I must confess, but right on top of my small bucket list is a heavy scuba deal. I mean, I need to, get heavily paddied myself, but I just haven't had the time yet. But I will knock very hard on Dive Goa as soon as I can. But, it's something that I've always, in a sense, lamented. India does have this huge coastline. And in terms of water sports or utilizing water as a source of tourism or not exploiting it, but using it for sport and for recreation, we are, to my mind, very, very far behind. And to top all of that, we don't even swim as a nation. And I'm basically a swimmer and diver and what have you, so I'm okay. But, the fact that we don't swim as a nation is just mind-boggling, because it's also depressing or distressing, because the number of I can't beat around the bush, so I'll say it. The number of deaths that occur because of drowning is just, why can't we learn how to swim? But anyway, you're doing something fabulous, of course, in Andaman earlier, now in Goa, and maybe around the world. But tell us more is the world now looking towards India because of people such as you to say, oh, okay, if they are offering these kind of facilities, then maybe we should go to India or around India for professional scuba opportunities.
So thanks for having me here, guys. So basically we have, like you said, an amazing coastline. We have warm, temperate water. We have abundant marine life. We are blessed with 7,000 kilometers of coastline. And a lot of it is largely unexplored because scuba diving is still starting in India, so to say. I have been diving since the 90s, but it has actually picked up in the last 10 years or so. And so we do have a lot of resources that are there to be explored. There is shipwrecks, there is coral reefs, we have islands like Lakshadweep and Andamans where you can dive. We have fabulous places on the mainland which are easy diving. Weekend trips away, Goa, in Karnataka or Pondicherry. And what has happened over time is that initially the dive industry was pretty much just foreigners coming and diving in India. But over the last 5-6 years, there is, I would say, 80 to 90% of the market is Indians who are now wanting to dive. So this sense of wanting to explore the environment, to do something adventurous is catching up. And there is a lot of people who want to learn diving. Like you said, the not knowing swimming is something that holds people back. But we do have experience programs for people to come and try a dive, and you don't need to know how to swim to do that. Pretty much anyone can be taken for a guided dive along with the one-on-one with an instructor. And I have seen like people's minds are blown and they actually motivate themselves to learn to swim and come back to do a course. So in that sense, diving is catching on in India, and there's a huge potential for the growth. But what it does need is regulation and support from the government, in that sense that simple things like insurance doesn't exist for sports, for adventure sports, for many adventure sports in India. And to properly regulate the industry, you do need to have checks and licenses and authorities that will regulate the safety of the sport. So these are things that need to be worked on now that diving is picking up in India.
You make a very important point, Ajey. I was about to say that safety is a very large, major concern, because anything that's deemed to have a certain level of danger also needs to have a very high level of safety. And
Yes.
It's very important for your entire community of those who are into scuba to portray to the rest of the world that we are as safe as anywhere else in the world, and all our systems are as pakka as anywhere else in the world. So I'm sure there's a move being made there. But again, Dr. Srinivasa, if I may say so, I mean, I don't want to sound in any way negative or cynical, but you know, we can do so much more in India in the world of sport if our powers that be understand that sports is a major driver for national prominence. I mentioned that Usain Bolt example. All these fine sports persons here and those who work in the world of sport are, I can't use the word ambassador, can I? But are fabulous ambassadors of the country. And to not encourage that and to not let it bloom and flower always kind of depresses me a bit. But you know, the glass is half full, I have to say that. Things are getting a lot better. Before I move on, Aparna, Sridhar, you've disappeared, but
no, I'm right here.
Yeah, I need to find out, is there any curiosity amongst all the rest of the people who may have joined us? Is there anything that
Yes,
you would like to bring to our attention?
Yeah, there's one question, Charu, on...
Only one. I'm very disappointed.
No, I will just go one at a time first.
Okay.
It's something that, you know, you used as an excuse to get off from a call once. It's your passion for golf. So,
Yeah.
so the gentleman is asking, can sport like golf, which, you know, can use our open spaces, be promoted more effectively? So you combine tourism as well as ecotourism as well as a sport.
I'll answer that very quickly. Absolutely, yes. However, it's a very high real estate quotient involved. So, you know, golf course is not within, you know, 3 square feet. I mean, they take a minimum of 125 to 150 acres. Does India have the land? Absolutely. However, there are other countries such as, say, Thailand, to take one example, and a few other nations in the Southeast and many other parts of the world. I won't mention the big 5-letter word who's sitting on top of us right now. They have truly understood the concept of golf tourism or sports tourism. And their golf tourism is not just the creation of a wonderful golf course, which is, you know, I mean, you gift somebody 140 acres, make it convenient for them, not gift, and they come up with a beautiful course and a clubhouse and everything else, but also everything else that goes with it. Why do people love to go to Thailand or Vietnam or wherever else and play golf? Because from landing at the airport to the transport till the course, to the roads, to every other kind of aspect that's involved in tourism, to the food, to the looking after, basically looking after your tourist, is something that other countries, even Sri Lanka was mentioned earlier, Sanjeev, they understand tourism and all these things knit together very well. It's not just creating a golf course, it's many other things that go along with golf tourism. But golf tourism is very big around the world. No reason why India can't do it. However, who is the biggest landowner in the country, Aparna?
Not me.
Oh, sorry, the other partner, beg your pardon.
No, you're the quiz master, but
Yes.
we are not, you know, we've gone beyond that many years.
Who is the biggest landowner in the country? The government. So I keep saying, with due respect, Dr. Srinivasa, I keep saying that the government needs to understand the concept of sport. Why not golf tourism as well? You can say it's a very elitist sport. Oh my God, elitist. You know, but it's tourism. It's money coming into the country. It's very welcome. And if the government says, all right, to a golf promoter, here's the land, make a golf course, get all the infrastructure done, and carry on. Of course, there's some check and balance. You don't want to misuse the land. But it's a very easy problem to kill, to create more golf courses, because in India, there's only one pay and play golf course. And if the golf courses are all membership oriented, how does the average Indian even get access to that course? And there's one small course in Delhi, which is a pay and play. So let's not get too caught up in this wonderful sport, because there are many challenges, but the government can assist by understanding that sports matters in terms of tourism, in terms of diplomacy, in terms of attracting others to the country. Because when somebody comes in for golf tourism, they'll probably see a few temples as well, or some other monuments as well, or you know, they partake in many other tourist activities. It's not just to come and play golf and go. So that's an answer to that. But let's move on then. The other Aparna, of course, Ms. Popat, we can get back to you. You were fabulously brief to begin with, and I can encourage you to be a little less brief now if you wish. But no, the other thing that I am also very concerned about, and I'll give one small example. You know, the Indian team, by the way, Dr. Srinivasa, were in, because I was there, so this is a personal story, in the West Indies in 97. And typically what happens is, you know, the Indian diaspora is very fond of its sports persons, and I'm sure it happens everywhere, Aparna, in badminton as well. People tend to kind of say, become traditional hosts of teams that go to these various countries. So in, I forget where it was, maybe St. Lucia or I forget where. And there was this party thrown in by the local, community, Indian community, and at somebody's wonderful home. Typically, there are many doctors there and what have you. So the Indian team went, and of course, all of us were appendages, commentators, and others were also invited. So we went and had, a wonderful meal and so on and so forth. But I could see that the cricketers were all banding together in one corner of that home near the television and kind of, not really too concerned about the guests and not saying hello and making polite conversation or whatever. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying maybe they weren't schooled well enough or whatever else it may be. Maybe the, social skills were not, at par. But the host and the host family did come to me, and I felt very embarrassed on behalf of my entire set of countrymen. And he said that, I've made such a big effort, and I do that every time the team comes here. And I just wish, Charu, that, these guys would mingle a bit and kind of, give of themselves to the people who are here and invited, rather than just sitting together and saying, we'll have food now, thank you, and leave, So, I mean, it pained me, but just a small example. Now, badminton, of course, is a more or less individual game, Aparna. But do you guys, over time, have you learnt is a bad word, so it sounds like a school. But is there a movement to mingle more? I know the badminton league certainly helped there, not just with the playing community, but with everybody, so that you're not some sort of don't touch me, don't talk to me, is there, because otherwise you may be at the top of your game, but if you're not mingling, where's the diplomacy? Where's the soft power?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just the fact that you play a sport and that you're traveling doesn't necessarily mean that you are, lending into sports diplomacy. It's really what you do once you're there and how you present yourself. So absolutely agree. Now, just few things here. I think being an athlete, I also feel that we believe that we need to cocoon ourselves in a way, because an athlete's supposed to be focused. So all they're supposed to know about is the sport and nothing else. And I think that's the way we were sort of brought into the sport or perceived sport. And that's how we were guided into sport. Luckily, I think that has changed over a period of time. And I'm glad it has, because what also happened was when you're in your cocoon and then when you travel, this sort of unawareness creates insecurity. And when you are insecure, you can't perform at your best, because you always want to stay close, stay in your comfort zone. And if things don't go the way you want, you can't perform, which is obviously absolutely against what you've gone there for, right? You've gone there to perform. So this has slowly changed. I think people are realizing, athletes are realizing that they need to grow as people as well. They need to be more aware of what's going on around them. And also with the media coming in, I think athletes today are getting questioned on a lot more than just the sport. So being aware is also good for that, because they're very much in the public view nowadays. And I think as the appreciation, if I may say that, for sport is increasing in our country, and also athletes are doing much better on the international stage, they're getting a lot more opportunities to actually go out and present India to the world. And a lot of them are. There's a lot of education coming into sport, be it sport education, be it academic education, a lot of conversations regarding that happening, which will definitely help the athlete grow and also be able to be more articulate with what they're saying and how they behave as far as the country is concerned. Because, Charu, we know that, athletes can be great ambassadors. There have been athletes worldwide who've, done things that you thought wouldn't be possible by anyone else. But, and that brings me to the example I read somewhere with the Dennis Rodman sort of example, where he actually got the US and North Korea together. And I mean, where would you think that was possible? Two countries with such different ideologies. And the way they got together was through basketball. And that is the power. And that's the power athletes have. But there's a certain way that it has to be done. And it's slowly happening.
Yeah, Aparna, once again, I'd love to go on and on about, the fact that, just another quick example, when we were doing the Pro-Kabaddi League in the lead-up days, a lot of Kabaddi players were, if I can not be disrespectful, were underexposed to the concept of media and everything else. And the amount of time that I spent on just counseling them about when things start, you know, there's going to be media, there's going to be attention. How do you behave with all of that? How do you absorb all of that? There was a lot of counseling. And I keep telling even now, all the team owners and everybody else connected with the game, I said, don't be afraid of over counseling about behavior and about, you know, how, dealing with the rest of the world. Because I, as a sports person, never believed it. And I don't personally appreciate the fact that, oh, you know, hum to khiladi hain. Hum to khiladi hain, meaning what? I mean, as you said, Aparna, what? My only job is to play sports? No, there's so much more to life. And I hope, Aparna, because you also have an academy, and I do believe personally that these things can also be counseled. As you coach people to play, you can also coach them life skills. That's important because you don't want to be a sports person who's so narrow-minded or tunnel-visioned that, you know, because also remember, in sports, it's a very steep pyramid. So right at the top, you know, you do rather well, but there's so many hundreds and thousands, millions who unfortunately don't do very well or can't, and their confidence must not be robbed. So Sanjeev, just back to you. I remember in the early days, Deepika Kumari, for instance, I don't want to take any names, was such a talented archer. But to me, it looked like when she went overseas, there was, and she was of course very young, there wasn't enough counseling for her or exposure, maybe that comes with time, to, and you get a little phased by everything that's going on, you know, in the rest of the world. Is the world of archery, for instance, are you, and of course as a coach, are you also spending time on counseling them on other matters and diplomacy and role model behavior, rather than just hit the target and say, that's my job? Unmute, 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 hang on. Sanjeev, you need to unmute, stop.
So I'll just tell you a small story. You right bang on the, hitting the nail on the head. This is a story which goes back to, you know, when we started scouting for the talent in India, and that is, as you know, as mentioned, the Special Area Game scheme came in 1986. And when Shamlal, they came in, the first time when they went to Russia, they were awed by the, you know, the just being there, you know, and that was the thing. That is where I started as a team player counseling these guys. You know that this is what the world is. You know, you need to understand. So coming from a very, very conservative travel background, going to a different country which is much open, that itself is a big thing for them. And on the other side, you talked about, you know, that the Indian diaspora giving lunches and all. And I'll just give you a story. We, in fact, on the other hand, we used to look forward to the Indian diaspora giving lunches, especially when you go to places in Europe where you don't get the Indian food, you know. So, and that is where we mingle. We used to always, I used to always tell as captain of the team, I used to always counsel them. Now, coming back to the fact which you're talking about, Deepika and all my other, why we have not been able to win at the Olympic. And that brings us to the, one of the points in our entire conversation which may happen, which is about the mind and the body connect, you know. It's all about, you know, winning at the Olympic is all about mind. Nothing about physical, it is nothing about technique.
Sanjeev.
The players
Sanjeev.
who go.
Sanjeev, I'm glad you mentioned mind and body connect. Mrs. Vijay Kumar is very delighted that we're back on the topic now. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So what happened was that in that mind and body connect, the problem which Deepika is facing, it is not one, we are counseling them. So today when we train people, we have a lot of time goes in training for the mind training, you know, because when they are getting exposed to outside, see, they are very good. When you are playing in the World Cup, nobody knows that we are going for a World Cup. We go, win, come back. The India doesn't know. But the moment we go for the Olympic, the whole country, you know, it's like an IPL. That from the president, the prime minister to the sports minister, everybody's coming, meeting, cheering, expecting. Now this media attention is not there for others when we are participating in a world championship, Asian championship. You know, this is where we need to train our people. This is where the, you know, sports diplomacy and the soft part is also about training the unexposed people into how do they take care of exposure and still maintain the focus. Where the mind and body connects, that actually being a mental sport, the more we are able to train the mind, the better we are going to perform, and hopefully in the Olympics we'll come back with an Olympic medal.
Wish you luck. Of course, talking about the mind, I suppose nowhere, everybody might argue, but nowhere is it more used than chess. So we'll get to Ramesh again about, you know, mind games. But I just want to quickly check from Mrs. Vijay Lakshmi, and of course, Aparna, if she's there. What's the timeline and how are we doing? And do you want to come in with anything else? Because time's always short.
Yeah, we have time, Charu, till 8:30. So yeah,
Well,
good.
maybe, but do you have anything else that you want to bring in right now?
Akka? No, just one question from one of the audience,
Go for
Charu.
it. Go for it. We love participation.
So they're looking at, they're asking about, schools of excellence and creating this, hunger for sport among children. So it reminds me of incident in, again, to go back to our Moscow days where, my father was asked, or, told by a person sitting next to him, why don't you get your children tested because they have flat feet? So it's like, they're so obsessed, even a 3 or 4-year-old is already groomed to be an Olympic champion or at least a sports person. So are we that, hungry for...
Well, if you're talking about, sporting culture and what have you, I think we're very, very far away. And I don't want to be negative on this show at all. But I mean, let's not forget that we are a young nation, for starters. And we're also a poor nation. So, that combination is deadly. It'll take us very long to get into a sporting culture, but it must come in from the top. And I mean no disrespect, again, to those who govern the country. But there are very few sportspersons or people involved in the world of sport who are also involved in the world of politics. Of course, there are wonderful sportspersons and diplomats, but more later. Dr. Srinivasa, we still don't have a lot of light on your face, but I don't know. Maybe we'll get it someday. But it has to come from the top. This focus on sport, this realization that sport is important, not just as a jao bachon jaake khel ke aa jao, I mean, it's like not for me. It's always for my children. Come on. I mean, the whole nation needs to wake up to the advantages of sport. I mean, not just the usual health and fitness and, maybe a medal here and medal there. But I mean, it's a major national force and it needs to be understood from the top and allowed to flourish. But like I said, the glass is half full. Ramesh, talking about performance academies and so many kids now coming into the world of sport, in chess too, it's a very popular sport in our part of the world. What are the checks and balances? Because we're dealing with also aspiration, Ramesh. So not everybody is going to be an Anand or you. And so what happens to the thousands of youngsters who do want to pursue sport a little more seriously, but then because they can't make it or for whatever reason, get turned off or don't realize or don't go on to realize the good things about sport because they haven't quite made it. I mean, we've also got to deal with the potential frustration of all those who don't quite make it at the top.
Yeah, that's a very important, valid point as well. But first of all, I have some views on most of the issues we have been discussing about all this while.
Go for it.
Yeah, okay. So maybe like 5 minutes? Is it okay?
Sorry, 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Okay, 2.5.
Okay, fine.
This is rapid chess.
Yeah, okay. So when someone at the age of 5 or 6 or 7 takes up to any sport, is not thinking about soft power, how to use the soft power and bring good name to our nation or winning medals. It's simply because the child loves the sport. That's how every sportsman are come into the game. So they are not thinking about other factors. They just love the sport and they want to play and have fun. And subsequently, when they realize they are good at it, they want to take it more seriously. They look for more training opportunities, playing in competitions and so on. And if they get more success, then they invest more time, effort, and energy, and also finance into the whole process. And eventually, they try to end up as professionals. So along this way, it's a journey. And like all these skills of the social skills, interacting with people, interacting with media, all this, we have to realize that the sportsmen also pay a heavy cost. When they are young, when they are passionate about some sport, they have to spend a lot of time on training. They have to be away from family, away from school. So they are missing out all the natural things which a normal person would go through in their childhood. And they are heavily invested in becoming better in their sport. And like Aparna said, you kind of have to live inside a bubble. where you isolate yourself and try to focus only on improving your techniques and your mental toughness. So that's a cost they pay. But eventually, once they grow, they mature, they socialize, they also realize that it's very important we accumulate other skills as well, social skills and so on. And in these days, I'm happy to see that most sportsmen are very active in social media as well. They have their own Twitter accounts, Facebook accounts, and they have followers from different countries. So that is happening as well. And I also don't agree that all responsibilities of enabling sports excellence should fall on the shoulders of the government. It is also responsibility of everyone connected with the sports administrators, the trainers, the academies, the players, the parents, the whole ecosystem. And nothing to make a game more popular than having a champion. For example, in chess, the current world champion is Magnus Carlsen. He is from Norway. And before Magnus, there was no chess as such. No one knew about chess in Norway. But since he became a world champion now, every Norwegian, they know how to play chess. The chess has been introduced in school. The game itself has become popular. It is shown live on television and so on. So I also strongly believe that a national hero in any sport will go a long way in making the game more popular and attracting more sponsors. And regarding the children who don't do well in sports, I don't see them as failures. I just see that they have been introduced to a wonderful sport. And I'm sure if they had put enough time and effort, they would have learned a lot of important life lessons along the way.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, I do keep, when I talk to a lot of youngsters, particularly, and at every possible sporting opportunity, I do want to encourage the youngsters by saying that, listen, if you don't make it to the highest level in the sport, remember you have inbuilt in you one of the most important attributes of succeeding in whatever else you may want to do, which is the capacity to work hard, because every sports person works really hard. I'm not suggesting that others don't, but that's a necessary ingredient in the world of sport. And I say, whatever else you may want to do in life, if you don't make it in, to a certain level in sport, because many sports are not even offering any livelihood, then you can utilize that attribute and others in succeeding in whatever else you may choose to do. Raj, very quickly though, I mean, let's be positive here. How do we get the motorsports world that you've spent so much time in to be cohesive? Because you need the government support, you need the support of everybody around you. You, of course, luckily, to my mind, motorsports, strangely, gets a lot of corporate support because of the motorsports, because of the motor companies. So in that sense, you got ready-made sponsors, and so much more can happen if just the world of motorsports would come together in India.
No, see, I don't see a problem as far as the world of motorsport coming together in India. They're by and large cohesive. There's no issue there. It's just that we have to yet learn how to appeal to the mainstream media to make sure that we feature there. Because any stakeholder that comes into the sport or sponsors or invests into the sport needs some value. And that value can only be accrued if the entire ecosystem comes together and helps create that value. As far as the sport is concerned, I think it's a very, very glamorous, dramatic, great to watch kind of sport. I mean, you have lots of spectacle there. There's stories that can come out, but somehow the ability to bring out that story, to appeal to the masses, is somewhere where we are falling short. And how do we address that? I don't know. I mean, we are still learning. Like I said, if we have a professional promoter who understands the entire ecosystem of this and can bring it all together, I think we have a winner here, because we have everything else that works. But we seem to be missing that element. I don't know where to find that.
Well, just from personal experience, one of the problems, as it were, if it can be called a problem, if you race in an arena, if it's just racing, then that's an easier problem to kill, except for the fact that you need a massive infrastructure. But the world of rallying was very, very popular in the 70s, 80s. and even the 90s. And that kind of has petered off because the country suddenly started thinking that, oh, what an elitist thing to do. People don't have food to eat, but you're racing cars all over the place. So there's also a mindset situation. I don't know if you want to talk.
So that is something that I think needs to be again communicated to the population, that it's a skill set that has been acquired and is now being used as a sport. So you have to appreciate the thought behind it. It's just not driving a car and you're not just burning fuel. That's not the point here. So unless we go beyond that and start to look at, the core of the sport and what it offers, and if you just pick on the fact that, it's an elitist sport, only rich people drive cars, that's not true anymore.
Well, yeah, I really do think that, the powers that be, and I choose my words with care,
Yes.
need to not be biased about this sport and that sport.
Yes.
If any sport is willing to come ahead, comprehensively, take custody of a sport, then it's the job to encourage. I mean, with a central understanding that all sport leads to better nation building. And I keep saying
Yes.
nation building effort. All right.
You're right when you say that, the powers that be need to give us a helping hand. I mean, I'm telling you something as simple as a motorsport participant needs special insurance. And there is no guideline with national insurance companies or private insurance companies to give him that insurance cover. Now, so he has to run from pillar to post to try and get that insurance, which is, counterproductive, to put it mildly.
Without doubt. And of course, the whole Formula One experience in India, I'm saddened about the fact that the powers that be were so negative about the permissions that were required to bring the cars and all the crew in. You bring it all in, you take it all out. But there were so many impediments, Your Excellency, that, within 1 or 2 years, the whole project crashed. And imagine building a whole track and everything else that has to go with the track. It was millions of dollars. And that's gone by the wayside because the powers that be said, oh, what is all this coming in and what is this container and who's this aeroplane coming in? Come on, we have to grow up a bit more because it was in, the world of sport, which is like not really much understood or perhaps misunderstood by many powers that be. For heaven's sake, encourage, support, motivate, take forward rather than impediments. But
it was just by chance that we got the pinnacle of motorsport into the country and we just let it go.
C'est la vie, sorry. But Ajey, one final take here before we get shoved out here about the potential. And can you do more of what you're doing, or do you have your hands full now, and do you want to also start a swimming pool to teach people to swim before they go and scuba dive?
I really think swimming should be taught at the school level. it should be compulsory for everyone to learn swimming in school.
Yeah,
the problem is just the infrastructure.
I know, we don't even have classrooms and washrooms, so we talk about pools now. So, anyway.
But the potential is there, and we reach out to schools, and it's not so much as an hobby that you learn. It's about environmental awareness. It's about being in the ocean and seeing what the effects of pollution are actually doing. So it encourages kids to actually think and experience practically what the effects of what we are doing to the environment are. So in that sense, it does make it very, it's a learning experience, not just a hobby. It's beneficial to the environment, and by itself as a sport, there's a huge potential, and there is a large base of people who will want to do it, and are looking forward to doing it as well.
I know divers get very close. Diving community around the world, very, very close, because of course they share this special understanding of ecology as well. Ajey, are you making any progress with, say, a corporate clientele? Because I'm sure companies would like to sort of experience what you offer, whether it's a small gang from a certain company, whatever. Is there a major understanding there?
We do sort of like outbound training for corporate groups, and we've sort of structured team building activities, but we do them underwater, but in a very safe environment like a pool at the resort where they're staying. But it's a very different experience because they have to communicate and coordinate, but they can't talk because they're underwater. Also, it's a zero gravity environment, so many tasks that they're given don't work the same way as they would outside the water. So it does become quite an interesting and challenging experience, apart from the fact that it's underwater and they're all underwater and breathing for the first time. So we do that as well. But we also do give back to the community in the sense that we are doing cleanups. There are a lot of abandoned fishing nets that tangle up in the coral reefs. And so every dive is a cleanup dive. And people who come diving with us are also encouraged to participate, to pick up trash from underwater, clean out whatever beer cans or anything else that you find, because the average Indian doesn't seem to think twice about throwing that bottle overboard. So,
Ouch.
yeah. So
well, yeah, I mean,
we keep it clean.
I know. No, I apologize on behalf of the average Indian. What can I say? You know, we'll all do our best. But what I'm most impressed about today is that Your Excellency, Dr. Srinivasa has been with us all the way through, rather than opening remarks and bye-bye. So I'm delighted. I'm delighted that you're still with us. And would you like to come in with a little something before we have a little closing comment from everybody, Dr. Srinivasa?
I must say that this has been a wonderful session. In fact, I have been following sports very keenly since my college days and school days. And Aparna, we have been following her, and Ramesh. In fact, I remember what you were mentioning when we host the teams when they come over.
Sorry, there's a little noise somewhere. Anyway, we're back.
We are not able to hear you.
Sorry, Dr. Srinivasa. I think there's a little connectivity problem on the audio. Would you like to just, okay. Maybe it's raining in Guyana.
No?
Well, yes, I think you're back.
I'm back. Okay. I was just mentioning when I was hosting the team.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. But I think there's some audio connection. We'll try and get you back in a few seconds. But all right. But I truly am very, very glad that you stayed with us. And I hope you, as you said, enjoyed yourself a bit. And there's so much to learn from all the rest of these gentlemen and ladies here. Aparna, do you have a final incident for us here about sports being a soft power where you realized, oh gosh, I'm glad I did what I did, all those hard training hours, and became this big shot baddie player because of your experience?
I think if there was one incident that sort of sums up sports diplomacy for me, it was doing commentary at the Premier Badminton League over 5 seasons. And I think just having a league in India, which is the richest badminton league across the world. And I remember about 20 plus countries, we had Olympic champions, we had world champions, we had the best of badminton on display on home soil. And I think because our Indian players could rub shoulders, and commentators could rub shoulders with, people and sports people from all over the world. I think that cultural exchange has sort of really opened up the Indian badminton players to the world. And as you mentioned, when you are on the same team as them, I think it's a completely different experience. And the exchanges, even small exchanges, like, when you have the before and the after of the matches, you have Bollywood music playing. Simple, you have, team celebrations, you have Indian food there. It's just how we are actually giving a slice of Indian culture, and we're sending it across overseas through these players and through the league. I think that has been brilliant. And also getting the English commentators to speak a bit of Hindi, which has been fun. I think the leagues for me have been like the biggest sort of way that we've been able to use sports diplomacy.
Yeah, I mentioned the IPL example earlier, of course, in Pro-Kabaddi as well, and many other leagues. I mean, and that's all I've done as a commentator, to witness all the coming together of many nations and many cultures. And it's been a fabulous experience all through my life. And what a shame we're not doing PBL together, maybe soon. By the way, Aparna, I've done commentary earlier on badminton. I thoroughly enjoyed myself.
My first ever commentary.
Exactly. I said, Aparna, come on over, do some commentary. She said, no. I said, well, it's going to be okay. Come, we'll have some fun. And I'm sure you did, and then had fun thereafter. Your Excellency, are you back in an audio fashion? No. Oh, okay, maybe not. But Ramesh, a closing thought.
Yeah, I think India has a large pool of talent, not just in sports, in every field we can think about. So we have a huge pool of talent, and I don't feel we should be cribbing about what we are missing to bring the potential out. Rather, we should all be focusing on what we already have with us and how to make best use of it and bring out the potential of the youngsters' talent out into the public arena. And I think we all have our roles to play, and it's very important we contribute in a positive way rather than worrying about what is missing. And instead of waiting for all the pieces to fall in the right place before things happen, I think it's our responsibility to ensure that in whatever way we can, we should contribute in making the ecosystem better for not just for sportsmen, but for every citizen. So that's my personal approach to towards excellence.
Ramesh, I love your positivity. That's what I keep trying to push everywhere I go. Positivity. Thank you. Sanjeev. You have to unmute yourself, Sanjeev. Stop.
So I want to, since we talked about the mind and body connect, so, I want to tell Dr. Srinivasa that, one mythological story, it's important to go back into the Asian history. And this is about Prithviraj Chauhan and Muhammad Ghazni, So when Prithviraj Chauhan went and to Muhammad, he was blindfolded, and his friend said, and I want to quote that, ki, Char Bas 24 Gaj, Angul As Pramar, Ta Upar Sultan Hai Machu Ko Chauhan. So that is about mind training. That time when he was blindfolded, he said, this is exact where the Chauhan, where Muhammad Ghazni is sitting, and don't miss it. And he killed Muhammad Ghazni. So that is the mind power, and that is what we are talking about. Then when we look to, today when we look to archery being a mind power, and most of the sport being mind power. So sports diplomacy, again, going back to the mythology, you will find that most of the Asian, kingdoms, they used to have yudh, kriya yudh, Whenever there was a function, there used to be a mal yudh, a kriya yudh, tournaments happening. So that was the power of sports even in the Asian mythology. Now coming back to a lighter note, going forward when we went for the first time, Shamlal, myself, Limbaram went to Russia on a cultural exchange program and then to Korea. After as Aparna said, after the tournament is over, you dance. So there's music playing. And we Indians dance. So we were more known that time for dancing rather than for doing archery because that was the early days. And thereafter the things have changed. But yes, on the lighter note, the Indian dance was very much applauded when we used to go on the floor and, among the way we used to do.
Just, well, that's why we had that opening dance sequence from Guyana. All right. Raj, a closing thought.
Okay. So, like I said, I'm an enthusiast and I'm positive on that whatever we were doing about 10, 15 years back, we are leap years ahead of that. And we are likely to maintain that pace. So eventually we'll get there. And the good part is that we have a very dynamic sports minister this time, and he's doing lots of stuff for motorsport. And I'm sure he'll be instrumental and a catalyst to move this forward. So we should be at a better place now and in the future.
Well, I've got to quickly agree with you because, I mean, I didn't name him because of whatever, but there's no doubt in my mind that Kiran Rijiju, who's the sports minister right now in India, is free of bias. I think that's very important that, I love this, so I'll promote this. I don't like that, so I won't. He's very open and free and very
wonderful.
So, you know, that's just such a big advantage to have somebody who, I mean, he may not be a big shot sports person or whatever himself, but of course he has a tennis court behind his house, by the way, his son plays. And I promise the next time I go, I'll play with his son. But he is happy in the world of sport, happy to promote it, happy to encourage it. Because for years and years, India was kind of very hierarchical in that I'm the chief of the sporting companies or whatever, the association or whatever, or the institution.
Yes.
And the sports persons were a very lowly second, you know, baad mein aana, kal aana and all that. All that now is changing. There's a lot of respect for those who play sport, and that's a wonderful change. Ajay, last words.
Just one point.
Sorry, Sanjeev. Yeah.
Kiran read you, so I just want to tell you how the world is changing in India. I think in the Corona time, Aparna may be knowing, and most of you may be aware of, the digital revolution of the e-coaching seminar, which has been brought together by Kiran Rijiju ji and our Sandeep Pradhan, Ravi Patil and all. That is really a mindset change, an eye-opener, how India is becoming digital in the field of sports. So at that note, I just wanted to thank you because you raised this point.
True. Also, a big thank you to Sandeep Pradhan, who's the chief of Sports Authority. Very, very forward-looking and not hung up about any hierarchy or, you know, such limiting factors. Ajay, sorry, back to you.
I'd just like to thank everyone about allowing us to put up scuba diving as something on this forum. And I'm just looking forward to support from the administration in sense of regulating the safety and safety of the industry mainly, because that above all is the most important thing here.
Yeah, and I hope that the powers that be support you, because I think it's a fabulous global activity. And if India can offer many more scuba options through you and others, then I think the world's attention needs to be on our coastline and all the rest of our islands, which offer some fabulous scuba diving. So Ajay, good luck. And I will be in touch for my bucket list. Who do I give it back to? Aparna, you first, and then of course, Mrs. Vijay Kumar to maybe end it all. I wonder if we still have a good audio from Dr. Srinivasa. If not, I'd love to hear from you, your final thoughts.
Charu, for being so persistent and very, you know, the opportunity again. You know, I just wanted to pick a couple of things. The sports ambassadors that you were mentioning about, you know, I had this good opportunity to meet Viv Richards and Richie Richardson in Antigua.
There you're almost back.
That connectivity.
Yeah, no, but you mentioned a very important point. You know, Viv Richards is a sports ambassador for his country, yeah, Antigua, and so on and so forth. So I see no reason why India can't appoint not one, but maybe half a dozen sports ambassadors who are sent out on sporting missions to nations to sort of, you know, to enhance the soft power that sports is capable of, whether it leads to more industry or commerce or just relationships or sporting camps or whatever it may be. But other nations need to understand through sports ambassadors, who are formally appointed such, that India is focusing on sport and is happy to receive sporting interconnectivity. So maybe we'll get there soon enough. If Your Excellency would like to promote it in the corridors, you can see. Okay, Aparna, back to you.
Charu, can I ask you one question?
Aparna Sridhar. Aparna, of course, always back to you, but.
Can I ask you one question? We had a lot of media attention on non-Indian sportsmen, you know, doing yoga or you know,
Correct.
taking a dip at Haridwar as John T. Rhodes did, and you have Matthew Hayden, you know, doing yoga in the middle of the pitch just before the match started. And you have Steffi Graf, she was the ambassador for Kerala Ayurveda. We had Arantxa Sanchez as the ambassador for the TCS Marathon. I mean, we have all these people promoting yoga. You know, we also have observed that our commentators are becoming very trim and fit. Also,
look
like
to the left top of the screen.
Yes. So is yoga something that, you know, the mind connect? Is that something that you see people, international sportsmen taking to, or as part of their training?
Simple answer, YES. I mean, the whole world of sport has woken up, not is waking up, has woken up to what yoga offers in terms of mind, body, and soul. And people are following yoga practices according to their own sport and according to their own, what their coach recommends and so on and so forth, more now than ever before. So there's no question about that. I think people realize the truly beneficial aspects of yoga. Whether they promote it openly, whether they understand the Indianness of it all, and whether, you know, at times, is it just an exercise? Is it a cultural thing, or is it an Indian thing, or is it a Hindu thing? So let's not get confused about all of that. The sporting world embraces yoga without question for its stillness, for its meditation, for its calmness, and also for its physical properties in terms of even injury solving. So there's a lot that the world of sport is now attaching itself to yoga with. And if India wants to claim it as our own export to the world of sport, great. Why not? Because I think the world is pretty clear that it's a very Indian form of mind-body exercise. So yes, is the simple answer. And thank you for bringing it up. I'm sure all of us have gone through it in our own ways. And back to you, Aparna, and back to, I suppose, Mrs. Vijay Kumar.
Yeah, thank you, Charu, for a wonderful session.
Well, we've gone kind of way over, but I thank all of you again. Thank you very much, if I may say so, on my own part, Aparna, Popat, RB Ramesh, Sanjeev Singh, Raj Kapoor, Ajey Patil, and the two of you, of course, Aparna and Vijay Lakshmi, and of course, a very, very special thank you to our chief guest who has stayed with us all the way through, despite some audio problems, Your Excellency, Dr. KJ Srinivasa. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay.
Thank you all for accepting and being here. And if you will all join us, we will send out a report and we'll see what we can do in the corridors that be.
Yeah, well, we have to choose our words with care. But isn't there a formal vote of thanks by Varsha? Is she around?
Varsha?
Come on, Varsha, wake up. I hope we haven't put you.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, there, good.
Varsha, incidentally,
Before the vote of thanks, I just want to thank Charu, and I want multiple Charus in all the games so that we have more of IPLs in every game.
We'll get
Charu,
there.
please start looking at other games, not only Kabbadi. Please join other games where the IPLs are not there and help us to make it IPL.
We'll get there because I'm a big fan of archery as well. And I think it has.
Oh, lovely. I was working on that format and I'll get in touch with you.
Please.
To take it forward.
Thank you, Charu. You've actually, caught the right person because Varsha is the only one in the CSP team who puts that she's a sports enthusiast in her bio.
Wow.
Excuse me?
I'm basically just
I think that's a rather unfair statement. By the way, just to let you know that we have organized 4 TST motorsport rallies so far. And we're going to be doing one next year. We are planning on doing the entire Ramayana route from Ayodhya to Rameshwaram. And I'll be really happy if all of you will help us.
Oh,
and Vijay Lakshmi ji also has a flying license. So probably the first women in flying.
So that was unfair. You're saying that in the CSP team, nobody plays sports here. Okay. Okay, go ahead, Varsha.
Yes. First, I really want to thank Charuji because I remember when we were first organizing the entire session on Mind Body Connect, Aparna actually came up with your name, and the minute she said, let's have Charu Sharma as our chair, I remember Vijay Lakshmi auntie and I just jumped and said, yes, we should have him.
Well,
so we're really glad to have you. And
but you weren't prepared for all the confusion that I caused, were you? Anyway.
No, I think Aparna handles really well. So like you promised a fun-filled session, you have delivered, and we really thank you so much for it. And thank you to all our panelists. I'm sure Vijay Lakshmi auntie and our esteemed ambassador has made tiny little notes, and I'm sure they're going to work towards it. So yeah, that's it from me. I'm also Aparna Popatji. I'm really glad to have you here because I remember begging my mother to send me to badminton classes as a child, but she refused to send me because she said academics is more important. So I'm really glad. I'm sure I'm going to get glares after this session is done, but that's all right.
It's never too late to play. It's never too late to play.
Well, I'm sticking to my gully badminton, so yeah.
Will do.
All right, so thank you so much for taking time off and spending that amazing time with all of us.
And Varsha, I don't mean to have the last word, but I also need to thank everybody else who joined us, the faceless, unfortunately, because they weren't quite on video. But if some of you are still on as participants, so thank you very much, because I know you had, as the airlines say, and you had the choice of many things to do this evening, but the fact that you chose to share an hour or two with us, we're all very grateful. So thank you again, Mr. Vijay Kumar, for setting it all up. Aparna, for your hard work, and all the rest of you. Your Excellency, thank you once again for a fabulous opening to our session. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Namaskar. Bye-bye.